So, hello, and welcome to another episode of Good Fat Life. And we have a very special guest today who has quite a story to tell. And I can't wait to learn more about him and also share it with you, our dear listeners. But first, I just want to bring your attention to our latest issue of Good Fat Life. It's our October, November, December issue, and it's full of some amazing stories. Every time I think about or go to the stories, I just realize that there's so much here right now for us that we can step into, learn about, grow from, and just enjoy that's here right now. So it's full of thought-provoking things. I'm actually making the recipes this weekend for some guests, and I can't wait to share all the abundance that's in those recipes and the history, deeply historic recipes. So that said, let's bring on our guest, Jeff Molby. I always want to say Mobley, but it's Mobley, right?
Molby, yeah.
Oh,
I
yeah,
like
right.
the animals, the mole and the bee.
The
Molby.
Molby. Oh, there you go.
Yep.
Okay, so you've done that a time or two. And Jeff is with chemoriders.org, as in bicycles, correct?
Right. Yep.
Right?
Correct.
So, Jeff, it's like, how many miles have you gone so far?
Well, I've been on the road for a little over a year now, and it's 8,447 miles so far.
Wow. It's just hard to even comprehend. So, tell us about where did this idea come from, and what is it that what inspires you? What gets you on the road every day?
Well, it was really a combination of a lot of different things. It started with my son went off to college last year, and so I was in that empty nest, and some might say midlife crisis mode, and I just had to figure out what I wanted to do next, and um, I was ready for a change of scenery, but I didn't know where I wanted to go, and I've always loved traveling, and I've been a bit of a minimalist for a while. So the thought of packing my life down into a few bags wasn't a far stretch for me. So I've been cycling a lot in recent years. I just kind of figured that maybe that was the way to go, was to hop on the bike and tool around the country for a couple years and see as many of the big cities as I could, and everything in between, and see if I could figure out where I might want to land and spend the next chapter. So uh, then I guess the big thing was I've been volunteering in a lot of ways back home. Uh, Through it started with the school PTO, and doing things like that, and uh, then joined the Parks and Rec, and helped out a little that way, uh, and I joined Rotary at one point. I So Oliver got invited to a Boy Scout meeting at one point, and I Oliver's my son. He got invited to a Boy Scout meeting by one of his friends, and so we went there. He's never been into sports at all. So when he found an extracurricular he was interested in, so I was like, okay, great, very supportive. So we get there, and we find out that the whole troop leadership had stepped down. So the troop was going to have to disband if people didn't step up. And so next thing I knew, I was the troop treasurer, because I didn't know anything about really Boy Scouts, or I'd been in Cub Scouts as a kid, but I wasn't going to be Scoutmaster or anything like that. So I ended up the treasurer, and we fumbled around for a little while, and then because none of us really knew what we were doing, and eventually I went to talk to our troop sponsor, which was the local Rotary Club. At that point, I didn't really know anything about Rotary, but they welcomed me right in, and their guiding principle is a four-way test that really spoke to my values. So next thing I knew, I was a Rotarian, and so I was doing all these things, and then when I decided to uproot myself, I wanted to come up with a way to take my service on the road with me, and so I started thinking about that, and that it's pretty common for Rotarians, if they're on the road, to visit a different Rotary club. So I thought maybe I'd do that, and I had also been volunteering for the American Cancer Society for a little while. So uh, eventually, I had heard about this program, Road to Recovery, which needed some more volunteers. And so eventually I realized that I could just combine those and I could go around on my journey, talk to my fellow Rotarians about the program that needs help and see what I could come up
Oh my gosh, there's so much here, right? there's
with.
there's like we could talk about 15 different topics,
Yeah,
branches
I'm game for all of them.
from your journey, right? So let's tell us about Road to Recovery.
Yeah.
So that's
So
the what you're wanting to get the message out about.
yeah, Road to Recovery is an amazing program. You asked about how the miles I've ridden, and thousands, and I've spent hundreds of nights in my tent and things like that. But all of that is nothing compared to the 10 or 20 miles that stand in between a lot of people and the cancer treatments that they need, right? Like we talk a lot about the research and, we're trying to get better there. And, when we want people to go get screened and so that they detect it early, we talk a lot about those things, but ultimately none of it does any good if somebody can't get to the appointment, right? So the American Cancer Society had this program, Road to Recovery, since I want to say like '83. So it's been around forever, and it's absolutely fantastic. It works like a sort of like a slow version of Uber, except all of the drivers are volunteers. The rides are totally free, and the mission is obviously critical. So the big problem with it right now, though, is it was closed down during the middle of the pandemic, and so a lot of the volunteers have fallen out or aged out, and so like all that momentum was lost, and so we're just trying to get back up because right now, uh, on average, throughout the country, about half of the rides that are being requested have to be denied because we just don't have enough manpower to take care of everybody. So
Wow. So what does a if somebody hearing this says, "Oh my gosh, how can I help?" What does a service look like? A request for a ride comes in, I suppose, in your area. Can you say
yeah,
how much, I'll go 20 miles or 5 miles, or
yeah.
how does that work?
When you sign up, it's mostly done on a county basis, the program, but you also have some mileage control to look at. And you also have, you don't ever have to take a ride. When somebody makes a request, it goes out to all the nearby drivers, and hopefully one of them is available for that, and so you can check your schedule. They're often posted days, weeks, and sometimes even months in advance. So you can just look at your calendar and see if you're free that day and maybe do the whole round trip, or maybe they're going to be at the appointment for 4 or 5 hours, and it only makes sense for you to do one way and somebody else will pick them up later. And so it's super flexible. You're always in control of the amount of service you're able to provide and help out. And
Sounds like a no-brainer, right? It's like, oh my gosh. I mean, all of us who have schedules with some flexibility into them can find a way to, do a ride or two a month, even a month, right?
yeah, yeah,
So it just
yeah, and
is.
that's
Yeah.
really all the organization asks for. If you can commit to a couple rides a month, then you can be a big help.
Well, I know a friend of mine in Oregon who had used a service somewhat like this, and it was a life changing game. It was a game changer. Because it made, and my husband and I were talking about this morning. It's like it can be could be the difference between life and death for a person. I mean, at the very least, it's quality of life. But the truth is, if they can't get their treatments, then they're not getting their treatments.
Yeah, and sometimes it's even, maybe they can get there, but their support system is already stressed, or maybe there's a conflict one week where, their usual caretaker just really needs to go into the office and do some work that day and or go to a meeting or something to that effect. And so that kind of supplement, it's such an easy thing to take off a family's plate, right? Like there's so much of it that they just have to bear on their own, but the community can really very
Right.
supportive in this way.
Got it. So, how would somebody who's interested in learning more find out more?
Yeah. So I set up chemoriders.org to kind of encompass everything with my journey. So of course I've got all sorts of information and links there, and you can start the sign up process there. Or the program is run by the American Cancer Society though, so you can also go directly to them at cancer.org/drive. There's all sorts of information there, and the onboarding process is a bit of a back and forth, right? You got to go through the background check, and they want proof of your insurance and things like that. And there's a little bit of training videos so you know what to expect. It's like an hour of watching videos. It's no big deal. But so you got to go through all those hoops, and but once you're in, then you just start getting emails and text alerts and whatever you want to
To say,
stay in the
okay,
loop.
well, you said you're going to be on the road now for another year. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah. Yeah, about a year and a half, I think. So I'm on the journey. I'm following the seasons so that I'm trying to avoid, the worst of winter and the hottest of summer, which I'd probably be more comfortable in the winter being from Michigan. But either way, I want to avoid those extremes. So my journey across the country is a very north-south, back and forth type thing. And so right now I'm heading south towards Texas, and I'm in Nashville at the moment. Uh, and I'll kind of hang out down there, visiting all their major cities, spreading the word, and then head back north in the spring and go up through, I think, Albuquerque and Denver. I haven't quite nailed down my exact route yet. But then at some point, I'll cross over the Rocky Mountains and go down the West Coast. And I think I'm going to end in Phoenix. And so all of that following the seasons will probably take about another year and a half.
Oh my gosh. So, you are actually riding your bike over the Rocky Mountains?
Yeah, apparently. I don't if I can think of a way to avoid it, I might, but
I'm
no,
like, how is that even possible?
I don't know. I'm told I'm told people do it. I've met people who have done it, and they tell me it's
Okay.
not that bad.
Okay.
But yeah, I've got a lot to learn about that. I don't really know.
So, one of the things that you said that I really love is this has been a journey, right? With that you've built on. So, one of the things we like to talk about in Good Fat Life is that the things that we did when we were younger or that we may do tomorrow, all of it is kind of like information or experience that we build on. It doesn't mean we have to have like this. Nobody has a straight line path, right? It's like, oh, okay, I'm going to do this for every day of my life. It's like, and that's what makes it so wonderful. And, I remember being when I was young and looking at what I wanted to go to college for, right? There's that
Yep.
sense of, oh my gosh, I'm going to make this decision and it's going to affect me the rest of my life. And I don't know, it was so much pressure.
Yeah.
But the truth is that it's not how it works.
I agree completely. And so Oliver and I have kind of had those conversations as he was making the transition from high school to college, and he didn't even know for the longest time if college was the path he wanted to take. And so we had a lot of those conversations where it was like, and he's a big fan of the Japanese anime shows, and he's
Okay.
gotten me into it now too. So we started talking about it as his season 2 of his life. We're just gonna like, hey,
Okay.
you gotta make some big decisions here, but it's just the next season. If you end up not liking the story arc, you can always change it, and season 3 could be totally different.
Yeah. Oh, what
So
a great
yeah.
way to look at that. That's a great analogy, right? Because there's shows that my husband and I like to watch that might be season 25 now, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
you're
for
right.
sure.
If you look at back how that's changed, it's definitely changed and evolved, and it has to keep your interest for 25 seasons, right?
Exactly. Exactly. Exactly.
Otherwise, because there's so many other things that can capture our interest.
Yeah.
So just now, I'm curious about some of your logistics. So you said that you camp a lot of the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably 2/3 of the time I'm camping.
Okay.
And that's just a tiny little tent with a little air mattress, and and I'm just in camp long enough to sleep. There's
Okay.
but so yeah, that's probably most of the night. Sometimes I've got a host. Uh, you know, this weekend in particular, my mom came out to Nashville to visit me, so we spent the last few days together, and that's been nice. And she's not big on camping in tiny little tents, so she got a nice hotel room, and so I
Yeah.
get to enjoy that. Right?
Well,
And
tell her hello, please.
I will.
And thank you and thank her for, because that's how I found out about what you're doing is because I know your mom and your mom shared the link when she heard that a colleague of ours was going to a Rotary meeting,
Oh, right on.
right?
Yeah.
So and she
Yep.
goes, "Oh, well you might be interested in seeing what my son's doing." And we're
Yeah.
like, "Heck
Yeah.
yes, tell us more."
I
So,
I I tell you, she's become one of my biggest advocates on this. When I set off, we hadn't really talked about any of it as far as the volunteer side before I left, but uh, I was it, I was posting to social media and doing little daily recaps, and of course she was worried sick about me on the start of an adventure like this, so she was watching, every single one, and uh, after a few weeks, she realized that she had the flexibility in her life to help out in this way. So she started driving and last December, and just really hasn't stopped talking about it since. She's found it super rewarding, and she's recruited several other people to drive as well. So like that really drove home for me how important the word of mouth is, right? Because we
right.
all probably
Right.
have somebody in our lives who's got that flexibility and a good heart and willing to step up, and uh, but it's an awareness problem, right? Most people just don't know that this need is out there. So any conversations along those lines are just hugely valuable.
Well, it's the minute I saw your video, right, had to send it to other people, and so it's an easy. I'll say it's an easy sell, right? It's like, oh my gosh, I know you can find a couple hours a month to, to
Right,
everybody I talk to. It's like you can find a couple hours a month to do
right.
this, and it makes such a difference. And it's the opportunity to meet a new friend and
Exactly.
just give back. So, well, I can't, we're going to start watching you. We're starting watching you. And, I've got people as I see where you're going, will link you up. I hope you've connected with my friends in Nashville and, um, we'll just kind of watch if you send us kind of your itinerary in advance, we'll be sure and
Okay.
post it so that people who know people in the areas can help make those connections.
That's fantastic. Thank you.
So, it's just like one little piece at a time, but that grows and that's what we do.
Jeff, what are you eating when you're on the road?
Um, it's really all over the map. Sometimes the Rotary meetings are always centered around a meal. So, and some of the clubs are eating very well. And then there's other times where I'm stopping at a gas station or a Dollar General and just
All
having
right.
a little bit of just whatever.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if you were packing like, stopping at a grocery store, getting stuff, and then, camping and, doing your little cook fry or do whatever you're doing at
Yeah.
Ross as well.
So I've yet to cook anything myself. Although actually I was at a restaurant here in Nashville where you cook your own pancakes at your table. They have a grill right there into the table. So I guess that counts as cooking, but that's about the only cooking I've personally done. So a lot of restaurants or just like I eat a lot of peanuts and that sort of thing when I'm looking for a little protein. Uh, and then yeah, just restaurants and the Rotary meetings and when I'm staying with a host, they'll often cook for me, so I get a proper home cooked meal from time to time as well.
Okay. Well, I'm
Just
glad
so
you're getting support that way.
Do you have a maximum number of miles that you go in a day?
the longest day so far has been 123 miles. I've
Okay.
I've broken 100, I think, 5 times along the way. I'm not trying to do that very often. That's a long day. My typical day is more like 40 or so miles. That gives me like a half day's ride and time to do whatever else I might need to do that day. And then I have days like I haven't even touched my bike in almost a week now, just because I've been sort of in town and doing the advocacy work and visiting with family, right? Uh,
Right.
so there are those 0 days too. I think my average when you sort out the year is probably around 20-25 a day.
Okay. Okay. Wow. What an adventure. Of course. And so I just want to remind our viewers, go out and check chemowriters.org, and we'll have all of the information in the show notes. And I do want to do a shout out for one of our sponsors. It's ALG Solutions, and they're a CPA company, and they care about their clients in a way that you just don't see. And this time of year, one of the things that they like to do is just have a check-in and be sure that you're doing all the right stuff and to take advantage of your tax situation for before the end of the year and can make good decisions. And in fact, yesterday, one of my colleagues called me in tears because of how poorly the CPA she'd been working with was treating her and her business. And so I'm like, well, I know who you can call. So they got hooked up right away, and it's all good. So thank you to ALG Tax Solutions. We're just delighted to be working together. And to you, Jeff, thank you so much for being here again. Just safe journeys, be safe, and we just can't wait to hear. And so we'll also be happy to post, any of your blogs or anything. Send them our way, and we'll post them on our website.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we've had another great episode of Good Fat Life, and I encourage you to check out chemowriters.org, sign up, grab your friends, sign up, get them to sign up, and let's set an intention that there is nobody that can't get to their treatment because the volunteers are so prolific and plentiful. All right. And on that happy note, let's go out and live your